Okay, so what should one do about those that try to convert us? This seems to happen to me when I'm waiting for the bus for anything. Some of them won't leave me alone till my bus is there. What to do with the crazy zealots? No, no. Um, you know, I've, I've of course come up against this myself. The best way, if you can, the best way that I've found is to ask them lots of questions, because it helps you to be open-minded and it helps to change your um, the angst that we have, the aversion that we have. This what we call patiga. Patiga is this kind of annoyance that comes up. It becomes annoying, or it chafes on us to have to put up with people. But clearly, these sort of people have some problem inside. They have some very, very, very strong clinging. It's clinging to views, and it's clinging to their idea of pleasure and happiness, and what's right. They're clinging, clinging out of fear as well, clinging out of ignorance as well. And the best way to you consider them as someone with a big knot inside. They're all twisted up inside, and you have to look at this and you have to help them to untie it. And it takes skill. It takes clarity of mind. So what I find is the best is to explore it with them. They're telling you that X is right, or X is the right path, or if you don't X, then you're going to Y, or you're going to hell. No, you're going to suffer. So you can ask them about it. It's what I found is the best thing to do, because it helps to ease their pressure, and you can sort of help carry their burden around for them. Say, okay, well let's look at this burden, and hopefully when you look at it, you'll see that it's less useful than you thought. I mean, it helps to ease up the situation. If I keep denying God, yeah, I guess that's. I guess you get that. I don't think I've ever gotten it quite like that. No one. I've never had anyone tell me that I'm going to hell. But that's what they're thinking, right? But if you talk to them about it and ask them, no, I was asking. It was funny. I have a funny story that I'll tell you, and this is hopefully a little bit of support for the idea of asking questions, because I went to this evangelical church that was. I've told this story before, but some of you may have heard it. But let's start at the beginning. I was teaching meditation in Los Angeles at a Thai monastery. There were some English teachers that were teaching the monks English in the monastery, and I said, "Well, bring them down, some Westerners. Let's teach them meditation." They're like, "I don't think they'll be interested." Well, why not? Bring them down. Well, they're actually evangelical Christians. Like, oh, well, bring them down. Christians can meditate. Why not? Turns out, by the looks of it, their only reason for going there was to convert everyone, because they were totally patiga is the word. They were averse to me, and cold. A couple of them were nice, but there was the leader of them, and I said, "Well, why don't you take my card?" And they're like, "No, and she's like, "No, thanks, we don't want your card." I'm like, whoa, it was that severe. And so I talked to them a little bit and tried to, open them up and just explain a little bit about meditation. And I think in the end, a couple of them took my card. Next night, the leader comes back with her husband, who works at the evangelical parish or whatever you call it. And he had a Bible with him, and their kids came as well. And their kids were a real trip, because they had trained their kids to say all these crazy things. And so I was asking him, and then I was asking his kids, and he said, "Go ahead, you can tell him." And the kid would say, "If you don't believe in God, you're going to hell," or something like that, or whatever they were saying. All of these crazy things that they say. And we really nailed them. I was with a Jewish friend, a Jewish Hindu friend, she's really a trip, and she had some good arguments as well, and we were just arguing with them. But the argument didn't, it didn't help them at all. It created more aversion in their mind, and it widened the gap between us, really. It didn't end the night on, we felt good because we had won the argument. But, what is that except conceit and attachment? So the next morning I was thinking about this, and I said, well, if they're going to come and visit me, then I have a right to go visit them. And so I did. I walked the next day after my alms round. On the way back from alms, or after I ate, or I can't remember. I don't know, because I ate on alms round, and then when I came back, I said, okay, I'm going to go down to the parish and walk down there. And went in, and there was a guy up on the dais or whatever, talking, and the hall was full of people. I stood in the back, and this couple of people were standing at the back, and I think I talked with him, or I can't remember how it came up, but it turns out it was a teaching of pastors. This guy was a teacher of pastors. I don't know what they call him. He was teaching the teachers, or he was a pastor to the pastors, or something like that. Came down from San Francisco. And he went on, and I was just kind of listening, and then this guy beside me hands me a Bible. And he said, you can keep that. And it was a nice little Bible with gold trim. It was not a cheap item. It was his Bible that he was giving me. So they're nice people, right? They have an agenda, but they have a big heart, in many ways. So I was reading through it, and then I started reading through other parts, and then it kind of wound down, and I went outside and sat on a bench and started reading, and I was reading some passages and looking up, because I had heard that God is love, so I was looking it up, and I can't remember the whole thing, but then the guy comes out. The guy bursts out the doors and bears down on me with both barrels loaded. And he said, "What an opportunity!" He said, "I saw you in the back," and so on and so on. And he had a Bible that was this, right, you can see, was this big. It was huge. He had the Bible's Bible, and he drops it on the bench beside me, and puts his foot up on the bench or something like that, and it was just like, what an opportunity to convert me or something. And so this is where this was the example of how to deal with these people, as I started asking him questions, because here I had a Bible, and I was like, great, here I have the teacher of the pastors right in front of me, and I can ask him questions. So I asked him some fairly, not terribly pointed, because you don't want to sound threatening to them. You don't want to seem to be just asking questions for the sake of asking questions. I was really interested, and he told me some really weird things, like how we die twice. There was something about how God is love, and I said, like, if God is love, then why does he send you to hell, or something like that? And then he went on about how God is also truth or something, or I don't know, and how God loves us and therefore he has to send us to hell, something like that. I mean, what's going on here is you're starting to point out to them, or let them show themselves the inconsistencies, because in trying to explain such a thing, you have to run so many somersaults that it gets tiring, and you go through the inconsistencies. You're forced through them. You're forced to feel the inconsistency of your argument. And that's a powerful thing. So I did this with him a few times in a few ways. I asked him about children. I said, what about children? Do they go to hell? No, I didn't ask him. I said, well, what about a person in a country where they've never heard of Jesus? What if they die without having taken Jesus into their heart? Or something about a child. It came up, and he said, well, yeah, they according to the Bible, they go to hell as well. And I said, well, that doesn't sound really fair, does it? And he said something like, no, it doesn't. I can't remember exactly how it went, but it was so absurd. It was like, this is the guy who's supposed to be teaching this stuff, and he doesn't even think it's fair. And then we were talking about faith, in the end, it finally came down to this where I really got him. So I was asking him about faith, and he was saying, the point in Christianity, or in his Christianity, is that it's faith. The faith is what determines whether you're Christian or not, and it's because of faith that works come, or so on, and so he has this argument of faith over works. And so he said that when you really, really become Christian is when you have this unwavering faith, or a person who has truly accepted Christ. He said it's something like those people in Africa or in countries where they've never heard of Jesus Christ. They've already hardened their hearts to Jesus. And he said, for a person who's truly accepted Jesus into their hearts, they have unwavering faith. And so I asked him, I said, so what about your faith? Does your faith ever waver? And you could tell, I could see it in him. He just went like this. His mind started wavering in just a split second. And then he said, well, for myself, no, I'd have to say it doesn't waver. But he was like wavering all over the place. And so I just left him at that, and thinking to myself, wow, this is the teacher's teacher. They don't really have that much, and if you just go through it with them, it's kind of fun, actually. I went through with some Mormon kids through this. Later on, I realized this was, there was something to this, and so I talked with the Mormons, and actually it was really interesting. Mormons are like, they don't really have many beliefs at all. They were like talking about how God went through all that we have to go through, and that's how he became God. And I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. And a lot of what they were saying was like actually compatible with a never-ending universe, or with samsara. So I think, well, that's my answer to that question. Hopefully that's helpful in some way.